Hello and welcome back to the Chargers Check-In. My name is Cecilia, and today we're going to be looking at running back options that the Chargers have going into the upcoming trade deadline. Now, there's still a little bit of time, and the Chargers did just make a move, but I don't think that Joe Ortiz is done. I really don't. This is a guy who really likes to mix up that roster. We call him Chef Ortiz for a reason, and I think that they are not going to be accepting of the current running back room. You know, I don't think that there's anything that they could have done to know that Najee Harris and Omarion Hampton would both be out. And obviously with Najee Harris being done for the Chargers, they got to look at another long-term option. Now, obviously, that's something that they got away with the draft. They're going to be having a sense of how good is the running back draft at this point, but I also think that there are some really good options too that I'm particularly excited about that they could trade for. Man, it's starting to really feel like football season. It's cold outside. I mean, I live in the Midwest. I'm curious. I'm sure most of you, if you're watching this, live in Southern California. What's it been like there? Does it feel like fall yet? You know, I grew up in Southern California, and you get like this narrow window where it feels like fall, but not till like late November into December. You know, I'm not sure. How are you guys feeling out there? Because me, I'm ready to start wearing sweaters. Got the sweatshirt on today. I feel good. I feel good. I love it. Makes me want to bring out the barbecue. I don't know. I'm feeling it, guys. I know as Charger fans, we're supposed to be all doom and gloom and all that, but I love football and I'm having a good time, man. I will be going over the Dolphins game soon, but not quite yet. First, we're going to look at these trade options. And before we get into that, I got to say the Chargers right now only have 5 draft picks going into next year. Now, do I think that they're going to pick 5 players in the draft? No. I could easily see them trading down in the first or second round, try to accumulate those day 2 picks. But to me, there's just no way that Joe Ortiz ends up with only 5 draft picks. He's going to move some stuff around, maybe move some players around, do what he has to do. I don't see him with only 5 picks. But because he only has 5 picks, you have to think about these picks are really valuable. And so I know a lot of you are clamoring for Alvin Kamara or Breece Hall, and I will talk about them. They are options, but to me, they're not really realistic options because they are going to be really competed for. A lot of teams are interested, and you're going to have to spend something a little bit higher, and I don't think the Chargers can afford to do that. And so all these options that we look into, my favorites are going to be those ones that we can get for late round picks whose contracts aren't too crazy, and more than anything, who are good long-term options. Because as much as we are trying to replace Omarion Hampton, really we want to complement him because we're looking for, you know, when he gets back, who can help us in the playoffs. So with that in mind, I think the profile that the Chargers are looking for is they need a reliable back who can catch passes, who can pass protect, because Lord knows Justin needs it right now. We're not looking for a star. We are not looking for a running back 1. That's clearly Omarion Hampton when he gets back. We just need someone we can trust in the meantime. I think a Greg Roman offense does its best when you have that 1-2 punch with running backs, and you know, we saw them try to do that with J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. Didn't work out. Dobbins was good, but Edwards really couldn't stay on the field. But someone that has a complementary skill set to Hampton, but still has that reliability that Hampton has. So let's get into it. My favorite option that the Chargers could trade for is Rico Dowdle of the Panthers. Now, a lot of you will probably have missed his game against the Dolphins just because Panthers-Dolphins not the most exciting matchup, but last week he kind of went crazy on the Dolphins. He ran for, I think, 206 yards. He broke tackle after tackle and really pointed out just how small a lot of the Dolphins defenders are. We'll get into that in my Dolphins preview video, but man, and this guy, he's 27, he's a veteran, small cap hit, and I think he could definitely be a long-term piece. He's similar to Hampton in terms of production. Hampton has been lower numbers, more consistent. Dowdle has gotten a lot of his stats just in this last game, so that's worth noting. It's, you know, early in the season, but his explosive play potential is really up there. You know, to me, he hasn't caught many passes, but he has the skills. I think he has shown that he can do it, and he just hasn't been used in that way by the Panthers offense, which has really failed to find their footing this season. Bryce Young hasn't looked good. I think when they lean on him in the run game, they just want him to run and get the ball in his hands as soon as possible instead of risking something going wrong with the quarterback, which that's not a good situation for them to be in. They've been sellers at the deadline for years now, and at some point they're going to have to decide on Bryce Young, and they are going to need draft picks to support him or to support whoever they want to go for next year. And so the Chargers could probably get Rico Dowdle for a conditional 6th-round pick. I don't see his value skyrocketing too much because I think there's going to be so much attention in the league on bigger name backs. To me, this is my favorite. I like his speed. I like his explosiveness. He is remarkably cheap. I could see him being a great complement to Hampton long term. And after his performance, he's definitely on a lot of teams' radars. I still think they could probably get him for one of those late round picks, but we'll see. Now, I'm going to talk about Alvin Kamara, but I don't think that the Saints want to trade him. I don't think that the Chargers want to trade him. And if the Saints do end up trading him, it's going to be a team that is willing to pay more than the Chargers are. He's a veteran with a deal that is going to keep him under contract for another year. So he's more of a long-term option. He can receive, which the Chargers need right now. He has a lower yards per carry, but he's very reliable. But the fact of the matter is the Saints can't afford the dead cap that would bring. They have so much. They are in absolute cap hell. And I think because of that, whoever ends up with Alvin Kamara, if they trade him, is going to have to overpay for that. And I just don't think that is something that the Chargers can afford. It's not that he's a bad running back. I think he's a great running back. But even though the Saints have another option at running back, even though they have their kind of successor in line, I still think that they're going to end up wanting that piece because they are in such an unreliable spot. And they may draft a quarterback next year. And if they do, they're probably going to want a really good run game around him so that they don't depend on him too much, which is just the unfortunate situation that Kellen Moore and the Saints are in. Now, the next option we're going to see this Sunday, because he's on the Dolphins, Devon Achane. He is a speed guy. He's a 4.3 guy in the 40. He's been an outlet for Tua. He absolutely can catch passes that, he's actually a really good receiver. You saw him this season. He's had some really impressive contested catches in the end zone. And I think he'd have a really complimentary profile to Hampton. His cap hit is $1.7 million. That is remarkably low for the value he provides, at least in my opinion. I'm curious what you guys think of him. I think he could be a good fit long term. He's gotten some criticism for not being an every down back. He struggles a bit on third down because he's not a power back. And I get it. But, when you have Hampton for those things, I think then he becomes a good complementary piece. I think maybe they could get him for a conditional 4th-round pick or for a 5th-round pick. It depends on how interested other teams are. He's definitely on the radar of other teams because the Dolphins are such clear sellers. He is a smaller guy, and I think because of that, he struggles a bit in the backfield. He depends on speed to break tackles. He has great balance, but he needs to get going. And so when he gets contact behind the line, he struggles a bit. That's kind of a con for the Chargers because while Hampton has consistently protected the run game by consistently getting back to the line of scrimmage or getting 2 yards when he was touched 4 yards behind the line of scrimmage, I don't see Achane being able to do that, which is unfortunate. So that wouldn't be good short term, but long term, I think it makes a lot of sense. And again, in terms of draft capital, yes, you are trading capital away, but you are making it so that you don't have to pick a running back. The fewer needs you have, the more you can go for just best player available or honing in on the 1 or 2 positions that you really need to focus on, which for Chargers is the interior of the offensive line. Now, back to a big name because I know people want to hear about it. Breece Hall. Look, I think a team is going to have to end up trading a conditional 3rd-round pick, maybe a 4th-round pick for him. He's in the last year of his rookie contract, which in one sense is good because it's low commitment, but in another sense, if he does get back into form on a better team than the Jets, which literally any team would be better than the Jets, he may end up being more expensive next year. So he isn't really a long-term solution in that sense, but he's also low commitment. So there's that. He is a dual threat, good in the run game, good in the passing game as well. He has really good vision and good decision making. And I think that's something that Amari and Hampton could learn from. That was something that when Hampton came out of the draft, people's concern about him wasn't about his physicality, it wasn't about his speed, none of that. I mean, he's excellent in every category, kind of except vision. And so he could be someone that he learns from. And I think that this is a really high ceiling player who would absolutely thrive in Greg Roman's system. I think there's no question about that. It's just a matter of, we don't need a star running back, and I think he is a star running back. And so I don't see a need for him to compete with Hampton for snaps once he's back. So he'd be great short term. I don't think he makes sense long term, and I don't think the draft capital makes sense. And it is also not Joe Ortiz's style. Curious what you guys think, but I think a lot of teams are going to be competing for Breece Hall, and I don't think the Chargers will be one of them. All right, I have two more options, one of whom I really like, but both of whom I think could be realistic options, and both are coming from the Texans. So first of all, Nick Chubb, he's a running back for the Texans. I think he could potentially be acquired for a 6th round pick. I'm not sure what the interest is on that. He's a veteran, he's reliable. He's on a 1-year deal, so it's kind of to me, a low risk, high reward situation. If you don't like what you see, you don't need to bring him back next year. He doesn't really have his explosiveness that he used to have because, he's had these injuries. Injuries are tough on a running back, especially anything on the lower body. They depend so much on being able to cut back and forth and being able to push through tackles that it's really hard for them to come back. And the thing is, he would be a cheaper option in the future because of that. And I think that's something that is appealing to the Chargers, whether you like that or not. And, he's looking better than last year. He's averaging 4.4 yards per carry, which isn't excellent, but he's doing it behind a terrible Texans offensive line. We've talked about how bad their offensive line is because Austin Deculus, I believe, used to play for them, and then he got cut before he was picked up by the Chargers. So their offensive line is in a rough spot, and yet he's still getting good numbers on his carries, and I think that's a really good sign because, he's kind of the opposite of Devon Achane in that way that, he can handle the contact at the line and still make something happen. But I think the most likely trade, and the one that, I don't know, maybe other than Rico Dowdle, I think I like the most, is Dameon Pierce. Now, I think he could be acquired potentially for a 7th round pick. He does not play much. He doesn't get many carries, doesn't get many snaps. He's been a healthy scratch a lot this season, and this could be a really good pick for the future. Now, like I said, the Chargers don't have a 7th round pick right now. They could trade a future pick. They could potentially do some sort of conditional 6th round situation. Maybe a future pick might be the best option there to get good value. I think Dameon Pierce, I love this guy. He's hard to tackle. He's really fast north-south. He has quick feet, runs with confidence. I think that's a really important quality. He's young. He could still develop. Absolutely. He plays with such urgency and such fight. That was true in college. He played for Florida. And it's been true in the league as well. Because of his lack of usage, he's going to be relatively cheap, and he's also going to be cheap in the future. And I think that's something the Chargers value a lot, especially having used a 1st round pick on Amari and Hampton. But the most important aspect of his game is that he could be used as a returner. That is a skill that he has. I think he's really solid at it. And I'm sure a lot of you will agree with me when I say that Keandre Lambert-Smith, he just isn't it. Chargers tried it. I agree with them on trying it. I thought that was a good idea, but it's just not working out. He's not running with confidence, and this guy's complete opposite. Dameon Pierce runs with such decisiveness. I think he does a really good job reading the blocks on these plays, and that is something that KLS hasn't been able to do. And it's not that I don't think Ladd is good at it. It's that I want Ladd McConkey as a receiver. I do not want him returning kicks or punts because I just don't think that it's worth risking him getting hurt. And while Darius Davis is out, we need another option there. And, I wouldn't mind Darius Davis having competition in the future. He has been kind of hit or miss, along with our whole special teams unit. It's like some days he does amazing, and then other days he does poorly in a way that's just baffling. I don't know if I see the special teams unit getting much better because Ryan Ficken is already one of the best coaches in the league. What are you going to change? They obviously can and should improve on the penalties. I fully expect that to happen against the Dolphins. I think they will be playing more relaxed than they have all season because this is one of the only games where they know what to expect. They have a lot of tape on the opposing team. It's not a division game. And I just don't see how you improve this special teams unit until Darius Davis gets back, unless you trade for a guy. I also have a great quote for him. When he was in college, he skipped the Senior Bowl to play in a bowl game for Florida. And he was asked why, your future is in the balance. You should go show up for NFL scouts. And, why would you just play in a meaningless bowl game? And he looked at him crazy and he said, "'Cause I'm a Gator, bro." He said, "'Cause I'm a Gator, bro." And I thought that was excellent. I think that this is clearly a team first guy, and that will work really well with this locker room that needs some spark, man. I think that this is a team first guy with a lot of focus, a lot of fight and urgency, explosiveness. I would be very excited if the Chargers traded for this guy, and I think it is a Joe Ortiz style of trade. But that is just what I think. I really want to know what you all think. I want you all to know that I had written out a whole video about what are the Chargers' edge options, what can they trade for at the deadline, what could they trade for now, and I will read them out really quick. I don't think the Chargers are going to trade for another edge. I think they have a lot of faith in Thule. I don't think they would have traded for a player they don't believe in, so now I kind of look at that room as, okay, they see this as complete. We don't know if it's complete right now in terms of looking ahead at the draft. We're about halfway through the college season, so I'm definitely looking at the draft. But real quick, the edge options, if they did want to trade for another, there's Jalen Phillips out of the Dolphins. They could probably get him for like 5th round pick. He's had some injury history, but he's still young. The talent's still there. He has great instincts, and I think he could be an absolute game wrecker in a different system. Cam Jordan out of the Saints could potentially give a 4th round, get a 6th round back type of situation. He plays in the interior sometimes, a lot of flexibility. Minter loves that. He's a bull rusher, pocket crusher. This team really likes that kind of edge rusher. He's effective in the pass game, effective in the run game. Problem is, he's 36 years old, and, you already got Khalil Mack, and I don't know that you need another player with that profile. Alex Wright out of the Browns, they might be able to get him for a 4th or 5th round pick. It's hard to gauge because I'm not sure the level of interest there. It's also not clear if the Browns want to be sellers on the defensive side at the deadline. I'm not sure the league is all over the place this year, so it's hard to tell. But he's got great pass rush moves. He's fast, he's powerful, solid against the run. He's a huge guy, 6'5". He could turn into a real pass blocker with that impressive wingspan. I think Mike Elston does a really great job of bringing that out of the guys. But he's on an expiring deal, could get expensive next year. He is pretty young. They may not want to trade him for that reason. There is also Bradley Chubb, also on the Dolphins. I do think he would probably cost a 3rd or 4th round pick, depending on the interest, but it sounds like there is a lot of interest in the Dolphins' edge rushers around the league. We will see. He's a veteran pass rusher. He's got speed. He's had a long, successful career. He also can drop back in coverage, and I think that is an advantage for Jesse Minter, who, we've seen him drop Thule into coverage. We've seen him drop Tier Tart in certain moments into coverage, which is wild. So I think more comfortable flexibility would be a good thing. And most of his salary this year was a signing bonus, so he is relatively cheap, but also he's harder to trade because teams hate trading a player that they gave a big signing bonus. It's kind of the sunk cost fallacy that is everywhere in the NFL. And the final option, Trey Hendrickson. It's not going to happen, guys. I don't think it's going to happen. He's a star. I think it would cost like a 1st round pick and a 4th round and a future 4th round or something like that. He's just going to cost too much. But he is a game wrecker, 17.5 sacks in each of the last 2 seasons. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. He's a clear blue chip player. He erases the need to draft an edge pretty much entirely. But he's expensive, $29 million a year. He's clearly willing to negotiate hard, costs high draft picks, high portion of cap. I keep hearing buzz about it anytime the Chargers talk about an edge trade. There's probably not going to be too much buzz about that going forward because of their recent trade, but I gotta mention it because there's just so much talk around it, and the main takeaway is give it up. The Chargers are not going to make a huge splash trade. If they did, it would be in the running back room because you don't have to give up a 1st round pick for any running back. And even so, they're probably not going to do it for an edge rusher. Now, I know a lot of people are thinking about offensive line options, and I can briefly touch on that. The best we can get is a depth piece. Maybe someone who can compete with Sawyer, maybe someone who can compete with Austin Deculus, but no one who is going to compete beyond that, in my opinion. I really think that free agency in the offseason and the draft are the only solutions here. So it is what it is, that they chose not to prioritize offensive line in the draft, and this is kind of that coming to fruition, which is unfortunate. But I will go through them real quick because I know we need some hope around here. Starting with my favorite option, Evan Neal out of the Giants. I think maybe they could get him for a 6th rounder, depending on how hard they are selling at the deadline, which I think should be pretty hard. He's been a healthy scratch, so he's not high on the depth chart, but he's only 25, former first-round pick. He's got the athletic traits. I could see him thriving in a different system. The Giants are just a rough organization, especially on the offensive side right now. And I think he's someone who maybe could genuinely compete in the future and could be a solid depth piece for now. Other than that, on the Giants, Aaron Stinney, he's played left guard, he's played right guard. They could probably get him for a 7th round or conditional 6th round pick. He's been a second stringer, but the Giants are sellers. He doesn't have great lateral mobility, which is why I think he can't really compete as a starter. He struggles to get in front on faster pass rushers, but if he can compete in the run game, I think then he can compete because none of the Chargers' offensive linemen are great at pass rushing right now. He struggles a lot against stunts, which isn't great, but you can't say he won't fit in. So, but he's great at moving guys in the run game. He can pick up where Becton leaves off if he gets hurt or if he moves to a tackle spot. We'll see this weekend what the Chargers choose to do with that. Trevor Penning of the Saints could potentially get him for a 6th round pick. The Saints are clear sellers at the deadline. Kellen Moore needs skill players, and that starts in the draft. And Kellen Moore knows that. They're not playing for this year. I can promise you that. This is a guy who looked amazing out of the draft. He's been a bit disappointing in pass protection. He has all the athletic traits you want. He has the build. He just hasn't lived up to the hype. He's done better this year, and he fits the profile the Chargers like. And keep in mind, guys, if you don't like his tape, the bar is Jamari Sawyer. The bar is Jamari Sawyer. I'm sorry, but that's what we're looking at. Nick Allegretti of the Commanders. I think the Commanders could be sellers at the deadline. They could be buyers. They're right in the middle. We don't know exactly what's going to happen with them, but they don't look like the team that's absolutely on fire like they were last year. So we'll see. But because they're not necessarily sellers, I think the price is a little bit higher. Maybe it's a give a 5th round pick and get a 7th round back kind of situation. They have a tough stretch of games ahead of them, and so they could end up well below 500 by the deadline, but we'll wait and see. He's not a game-changing presence, but he is a veteran. He has a lot of experience. He was on the Commanders. He was on the Chiefs. He has played in a lot of different systems. He's not great, but again, the bar is low, guys, and this, to me, is probably the most experienced option that we'd be able to get. Lastly, Tevin Jenkins. He's on the Browns. Could maybe get him for a 6th or 7th round pick. I'm not sure how much competition there will be around the league for this guy, but his contract is playtime based, and so to me that's a relatively low risk, and he has an injury history. He's only under contract for this year. To me, that's a low risk, potentially medium reward kind of guy. I think he could compete with Sawyer. He's a good run blocker. Not great as a pass blocker, but again, the bar is Jamari Sawyer. And I think he could be good competition in the future for incoming rookies if they decide to take him on long term, which they don't have to do because he has a low risk contract. Now, I don't see any of these as strong options, but I think Evan Neal could be relatively realistic. I think the Giants are one of the clearest sellers at the deadline. We will see. And I think more options will emerge in the next few weeks as more sellers emerge at the deadline. But again, to me, it's all eyes on the running back room. We'll see this weekend. What do they really think of Hassan Haskins? What do they really think of Kamani Vidal? And as you guys know, they signed Nyhiem Miller Hynes. Is he a realistic option? I could see them bringing him up as a depth piece, but they really like Hassan Haskins. It's just a matter of, can Kamani Vidal perform? Can he be the option, going on the outside? Can he be an option in the pass game and all that? And he's played well in the few snaps that he's gotten, but if they really liked him, he would have gotten more snaps by now. Ultimately, we just need to get through until Amarian Hampton is back, but if the Chargers can't run on the Dolphins, they can't run on anyone. And I'll get into that in my next video, which is going to be a Dolphins game preview, because I think the Dolphins defense has some real weaknesses that the Chargers can exploit. So I'm excited to see if they can do that. Let me know what you guys think is the most realistic trade option and what trade option you would be most excited about. And also keep in mind, it's unlikely that Joe Ortiz is going to do any real splash trades. That's just not who he is. Again, we're looking for a complementary piece, not a star. So I would give it up on the Alvin Kamara, Breece Hall situation. I just don't think it's realistic. Thank you so much for watching. That's going to do it for me. And thank you for the nice comments. I've been getting a couple comments on every video and I really appreciate you guys watching. Appreciate your guys' thoughts and let me know if there's something in particular you want me to cover. I'm happy to talk about the draft. In my day job, part of my job is to watch college football. So I am very familiar with what's going on there. I'll have another video coming out soon about the Dolphins game this weekend. But for now, now. Like and subscribe if you have liked what you have seen. Feel free to let me know what you want to see in the future. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Cecilia, and this has been the Chargers Check-In.